I now think it was a great mistake to move east again and have her go to that private school in Beardsley, instead of somehow scrambling across the Mexican border while the scrambling was good, so as to lie low for a couple of years in subtropical bliss until I could safely marry my little Creole. For I must confess that depending on the condition of my glands and ganglia, I could switch in the course of the same day from one pole of insanity to the other, from the thought that around 1950 I would have to get rid somehow of a difficult adolescent whose magic nymphage had evaporated, to the thought that with patience and luck I might have her produce eventually a nymphette with my blood in her exquisite veins, a Lolita II, who would be 8 or 9 around 1960, when I would still be dans la force de l'âge. Indeed, the telescopy of my mind, or unmind, was strong enough to distinguish in the remoteness of time a vieillard encore vert, or was it green rot, bizarre, tender, salivating Dr. Humbert, practising on a supremely lovely Lolita III the art of being a granddad. In the days of that wild journey of ours, I doubted not that as father to Lolita I, I was a ridiculous failure. I did my best. I read and reread a book with the unintentionally biblical title Know Your Own Daughter, which I got at the same store where I bought Lo, for her 13th birthday, a deluxe volume with commercially beautiful illustrations of Andersen's The Little Mermaid. But even at our very best moments, when we sat reading on a rainy day, Lo's glance skipping from the window to her wristwatch and back again, or had a quiet, hearty meal in a crowded diner, or played a childish game of cards, or went shopping, or silently stared with other motorists and their children at some smashed, blood-bespattered car with a young woman's shoe in the ditch, Lo, as we drove on, "That was the exact type of moccasin I was trying to describe to that jerk in the store." On all those random occasions, I seemed to myself as implausible a father as she seemed to be a daughter. Was perhaps guilty locomotion instrumental in vitiating our powers of impersonation? Would improvement be forthcoming with a fixed domicile and a routine schoolgirl's day? In my choice of Beardsley, I was guided not only by the fact of there being a comparatively sedate school for girls located there, but also by the presence of the women's college. In my desire to get myself cassé, to attach myself somehow to some patterned surface which my stripes would blend with, I thought of a man I knew in the Department of French at Beardsley College. He was good enough to use my textbook in his classes, and had attempted to get me over once to deliver a lecture. I had no intention of doing so, since, as I have once remarked in the course of these confessions, there are few physiques I loathe more than the heavy, low-slung pelvis, thick calves, and deplorable complexion of the average co-ed, in whom I see, maybe, the coffin of coarse female flesh within which my nymphets are buried alive. But I did crave for a label, a background, and a simulacrum. And, as presently will become clear, there was a reason, a rather zany reason, why old Gaston Godin's company would be particularly safe. Finally, there was the money question. My income was cracking under the strain of our joyride. True, I clung to the cheaper motor courts, but every now and then there would be a loud Hotel de Luxe or a pretentious dude ranch to mutilate our budget. Staggering sums, moreover, were expended on sightseeing and Lo's clothes. And the old Hayes bus, although a still vigorous and very devoted machine, necessitated numerous minor and major repairs. In one of our strip maps that has happened to survive among the papers which the authorities have so kindly allowed me to use for the purpose of writing my statement, I find some jottings that help me compute the following. During that extravagant year, 1947 to 1948, August to August, lodgings and food cost us around $5,500. Gas, oil and repairs, $1,234, and various extras almost as much, so that during about 150 days of actual motion, we covered about 27,000 miles, plus some 200 days of interpolated standstills, this modest rentier spent around $8,000, or better say 10,000, because, unpractical as I am, I have surely forgotten the number of items. And so we rolled east. I, more devastated than braced with the satisfaction of my passion, and she glowing with health, her bi-iliac garland still as brief as a lad's, although she had added 2 inches to her stature and 8 pounds to her weight. We had been everywhere, we had really seen nothing. And I catch myself thinking today that our long journey had only defiled with a sinuous trail of slime the lovely, trustful, dreamy, enormous country that by then, in retrospect, was no more to us than a collection of dog-eared maps, ruined tour books, old tyres, and her sobs in the night, every night, the moment I fain sleep.